Now, breaking news from WRAL. Coverage you can count on.
That breaking news takes us to the southern loop of the Beltline with a crash involving a pedestrian. And we just noticed this separate crash right now that just happened just a little while ago. I'll let you know about some alternate routes to avoid these huge backups.
And today is a WRAL weather alert day. I'm tracking a powerful line of thunderstorms. I'll show you what time it arrives here and who's seeing a little light rain this morning ahead of it.
Plus, 2 stabbings this morning, one in downtown Raleigh and the other in Garner. But we're hearing from police about these separate attacks.
And then there were 4. Duke is in the NCAA tournament semifinals. The price tag you can expect on a trip to see them play out in San Antonio. We'll give you a hint. It's not cheap. It's not free, that's for sure, and it's not cheap either. So we'll talk about that coming up. Thanks for joining us here on your Monday WRAL Weather Alert Day. I'm Michelle McConaughey.
Now I'm Chris Lemgood. Yes, the WRAL Weather Alert Day, that's the big news story for today because of what some states have already seen, Oklahoma, Indiana, Michigan. That is what is heading our way right now, and Elizabeth Gardner is tracking that very moment.
Yeah, this storm has produced a lot of wind damage and hail right now. We're seeing some strong thunderstorms here across parts of the deep south, Mississippi, Alabama, down into New Orleans, into Louisiana. You can see the yellow and the red boxes. Those are tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings that are current. We are seeing some showers and thunderstorms in the mountains of North Carolina. And just in the last 30 minutes or so, we've begun to see just a little light patchy rain showing up. It is happening here in parts of Wake County. Here, Wake County sort of Raleigh eastward, and then just south of Clayton. We've seen a little bit of that in Goldsboro as well. What we see this morning is going to be light and patchy. The main event doesn't come until around 4 p.m. and moves out by around 10. Damaging wind, isolated tornadoes, and large hail are all things that we'll be looking for a bit later on today. By lunchtime, we might see a few breaks in the clouds. That could help to energize the atmosphere even more. By 4 to 5 o'clock, we may see a few isolated cells, but the heaviest will come between 6 and 6:30 through the triangle, and then between 7 and 8 in our eastern counties. And again, wind damage and hail likely to be our biggest threats. Seeing a little bit of dampness here in downtown Raleigh as we've seen just that little light shower moving through. It is warm. It is muggy. 68 degrees is our temperature. We're looking at mid to upper 60s now. And we'll climb up to nearly 80 degrees before the storms arrive. Ken?
Happening now at 8:02, Elizabeth. We're staying on top of that breaking news in the southern loop of the Beltline. It's been a troubled spot since about 6 o'clock this morning. You can see the huge back of this crash is causing involving a pedestrian all the way back to the I-40, I-440 split. Let's get right to WRAL's Eric Miller on the scene with a look at what we know right now. Eric.
Ken, you just heard Elizabeth talking about those light showers moving through our area. You can see that rain coming down right now. It's just making conditions out here on the Beltline on 40 that much slicker, that much more dangerous as police continue their investigation. We're standing on the eastbound side here. You see police, DOT crews all on that westbound side. That side down to just 2 lanes at this point. We know this happened right around 6 this morning. That's when police say a man was hit while walking on the side of the road here. We know he's taken to the hospital. Still working to learn more about his condition here this morning. Here at this scene, there is a black SUV that is on the side of the road, flashers on, trunk open, no visible damage. We're still working to learn whether this vehicle is tied to the crash, what happened here, whether this was the victim's car, whether it was involved in the collision itself. We'll bring you those details as soon as we get them. Within the last 30 minutes, we've seen investigators out here. They're taking measurements. They're poring over this scene, but no signs of them wrapping up. So if you're headed this way, this is going to be something you really have to deal with throughout this morning's commute. Ken, I know you're tracking the best ways to get around the backups we're seeing.
Absolutely, Eric, and that rain is not helping, right? This is the huge backup it's causing. And this was a crash that happened just in the last half hour, so that just cleared. That was a separate crash as opposed to what we're talking about with Eric. And these are the westbound lanes, the bumper-to-bumper traffic. I said it's really stretching all the way back to Jones Sausage Road. I would recommend getting off on Jones Sausage Road and working your way over to Garner Road and working your way out that way. If you're stuck in this traffic, listening to us on 101.5 HD3, I would recommend using the northern loop of the Beltline. As a result, it's going to take it's going to add a few minutes to your commute time, but at least you'll avoid the slowdown that you're seeing there on the southbound lanes. And here's what we're talking about. That backup that we're talking about, I-40 eastbound coming in from Highway 42, a 25-minute delay elsewhere, just virtually little to no delays. Similarly, in the Bull City, not very many delays to report if you're heading into Durham this morning, which is really great news.
All right, thank you, Ken. More breaking news. One person is hurt after a stabbing in Garner. Investigators are on that scene right now. WRAL's Laura Levine also on scene on Wickerleaf Way. Laura, police are saying that person was taken to the hospital this morning. What else do we know about this?
Michelle, the situation played out and began unfolding around 4 o'clock this morning here behind me. You can see Garner police here still on the scene investigating. We know that from Garner police, one person was stabbed here at this apartment complex on Wickerleaf Way. This is the Bella Sarah Villas at White Oak. That's right off of White Oak Road. Now, the investigation is still early on, but what we do know is that they believe that this is domestic related. As you can see from the scene, no crime scene tape. And we did see some investigators really paying attention to this building. You can probably see them in the breezeway here on the second floor. They do have a suspect in custody, but they have not released any more relation or information regarding the person they do have in custody. Right now, we are working to learn how that person is doing who was stabbed early this morning. Again, as of the latest, we know that they're in the hospital. Their condition unknown. Laura Levine, WRAL News, live in Garner.
Also this morning, one person is hurt after a stabbing in downtown Raleigh. Officers responded just before 2:30 to the call on Fayetteville Street at Martin Street. Police say the person who was stabbed suffered non-life-threatening injuries. No arrest has been made.
Cleanup is underway in parts of Oklahoma after severe storms, and this is the same storm system heading our way today. Authorities say a man was killed yesterday when strong winds blew a tree onto his camper. Oklahoma, though, is not quite clear of those storms, though. The area is expected to get more severe weather tomorrow and even Wednesday.
Today, the Wake County Board of Commissioners will discuss its budget for the coming fiscal year. The projected budget is more than $2.1 billion. Today's work session will be at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and the county will hold information sessions about the budget process Wednesday at Oberlin Regional Library, next Monday at Southgate Community Library, and next Tuesday at Southeast Regional Library.
This afternoon, a woman is set in court today accused of murdering her Green Beret husband. Investigators say that Shayna Cloud killed 50-year-old Clinton Bonnell. The body found February 25th in a pond on Gainey Road in Fayetteville was identified Friday as Bonnell's remains, but the deputies arrested Cloud that same day. Bonnell was reported missing in late January, and that is because he did not show up for class at Methodist University. When asked on January 28th, Cloud told deputies she had not seen Bonnell since the day before. Cloud is in jail without bond.
President Trump has labeled this Wednesday as Liberation Day when he's set to roll out a new round of tariffs. Trump says that he'll unveil reciprocal tariffs against all nations. This is a tax that he has said will be the same amount that other countries put on U.S. goods sold in their respective countries. The president has already imposed tariffs on aluminum, steel, and autos, along with increased tariffs on all goods from China. Well, fans who want to follow Duke to San Antonio for the Final Four can get their tickets now, but it will be a costly trip. It won't be cheap. If you were to fly out of RDU on Friday and come back on Sunday, it would cost between $900 and $2,000. Travel experts say making a trip like this happen requires flexibility and creativity. You'll still need to look at surrounding communities for hotels. They'll have more availability and better prices. Also, think about flying into Austin or Houston and renting a car to drive San Antonio.
If you're able to, spend a little bit of time on the front end and a little bit of time on the back end, maybe seeing the area, doing some other things when you're there other than just the game. If you have that flexibility, then you'll be able to find tickets.
You'll also need to look out for scams, especially if you're looking for an Airbnb, Vrbo, or other home rental. Those types of scams are likely to become much more common as demand spikes around the Final Four. And Duke will play the Houston Cougars on Saturday in the semifinals. Tip-off for that game is 8:49 p.m. In the other Final Four game, Auburn will play Florida with a spot in the title game on the line. That game will tip off first at 5:09 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, Michelle, as the Duke men prepare for the Final Four, the season is over for the women's team. The Blue Devils lost in the Elite Eight to defending champion South Carolina, and this was actually Duke's first Elite Eight appearance since 2013. Their eyes are already on the future of the team. That includes freshman Toby Fournier, who scored 18 points in the game.
So much. I don't want to be too loud so they hear me, but I love them a lot. They know that. I feel like the relationship that we have off the court really translates into who we are, as a team on the court.
the players we talk with say their closeness will help them support each other as they look to next season.
A gas station in Apex says it's working to fix issues caused by what it calls compromised fuel. Drivers who recently filled up at the refuel market on Laura Duncan Road say it seriously damaged their cars. Refuel says the problem stems from a delivery of fuel to the station on Friday morning. Pumps are now covered with out-of-order bags, and people who did fill up with the compromised gas say it caused their engines to stop running.
It sputtered and like it was having trouble breathing.
Started to feel my car lurch and make some grinding noises.
The drivers we spoke with say they're having their cars towed. In a statement, Refuel says if your vehicle has been affected, please contact us directly so we can address and resolve the situation together. We do have information about how you can do that on our website. That's WRAL.com.
Humid weather is helping crews in western North Carolina fight the Black Cove complex of fires. The wildfires that are there, the 3 fires have combined and burned more than 7,600 acres. The Black Cove fire has burned 3,500 acres and is 36% contained. Meanwhile, the Deep Woods fire is nearly 4,000 acres and 32% contained. Meanwhile, the Fish Hook fire is 100% contained at 199 acres that were damaged. And just a reminder, a statewide bird ban is in effect until further notice. Your time's 8:11. Search for survivors. Teams are working to find anyone in the rubble after that major earthquake in Southeast Asia. We're going to show you the recovery efforts underway today.
And a local restaurant closed. 42nd Street Oyster Bar has officially shut its doors. How neighbors celebrated its final night of operation.
And today is a WRAL Weather Alert Day. This storm is powerful and is producing severe thunderstorms and tornado warnings right now, well to our west. I'll show you what time it arrives here and what you can expect.
Welcome back. As you take a live look over RDU right now, there are actually 18 delays and 3 cancellations on this WRAL Weather Alert Day. So if you do have a flight, make sure you check it before you leave the house. You're watching WRAL News, available on Spectrum and the WRAL app on your TV or your streaming device. And Elizabeth Gardner has a look around town as we are waiting for this rain to push in. It looks pretty ominous out there.
It does. Lots of cloud cover out there right now. And there have been some light showers, especially from Raleigh eastward. We're pretty dry right now in Chapel Hill, courtesy of Top of the Hill Restaurant. But in Raleigh, we have a little light rain that's falling. It's dry in Fayetteville. It's dry in Apex. So just a few little showers out there. We'll take a look here. We'll zoom in. You can see there across parts of Johnson County and Wake County, especially just east of Raleigh. Not much out there, but a sprinkle or two, a little bit of light rain that'll be in and out pretty quickly. Of course, this is a look at the line of thunderstorms. The yellow boxes that are popping up along that line are severe thunderstorm warnings and then tornado warnings. One of those down near New Orleans right now, but there have been a number of those popping up along this line. And so we have every reason to believe that we'll have some isolated tornado reports as well. I'm going to back that up just a little bit and take a look at the wide view all the way from the Great Lakes all the way down toward Louisiana. We've had a lot of severe weather in the last 24 hours, as many as almost 400 reports of wind damage in the gray circles. The blue circles are hail, almost 200 reports of hail. Fortunately, only 3 reports of tornado damage, one of those near Nashville, the other in Missouri, and the other up in Wisconsin. And so we're, of course, looking at that having developed to our west and most likely headed our way. By what time? By 4 o'clock is likely to move into the western part of the viewing area and out by 10 o'clock. Damaging winds are our biggest threat, but a lot of hail has been seen with this system and isolated tornadoes as well. It's a level 3 risk for most of our viewing area there in orange and level 2 to our east and to our west. What does that mean? A level 2 risk is level 2 out of 5 scattered severe thunderstorms, but a level 3 risk means more numerous severe storms, more persistent, more widespread, typically a better chance for some of those isolated tornadoes. A sprinkle or two this morning. Otherwise, we're looking at maybe a little sunshine into the afternoon. So a lot of dry time really today. And then by 4 to 5 o'clock, we begin to see some rain moving in between 6 and 6:30, a line of strong storms. And then that line moves through between 7 and 9, and then it's out of the viewing area. Not a lot of rain with this, unfortunately. We could definitely use some rain. Probably going to be close to 1/4 of an inch for a lot of folks. folks, but then maybe as much as a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch in some spots. We definitely need the rain. So, of course, today is a WRAL weather alert day. Tomorrow, looking at some really nice weather for the Durham Bulls home opener. And then our first day of summer comes early. Look at that 90-degree day, plus some humidity. We'll take a look at that coming up, Ken.
All right, Elizabeth, at 8:17, let's get right to the breaking news we've been on top of since about 6 o'clock this morning. This crash involving a pedestrian has the traffic backed up all the way to the I-440, I-40 split. Here's a live look at that scene before we get to the backup we're seeing. Photographer Mark Alexic has a live look at that scene this morning. At least 2 lanes are getting through right now. At one point, 3 lanes were shut down, but you can see some traffic is beginning to get through. This involves a pedestrian. Raleigh police and other first responders remain there on the scene. We'll continue to keep an eye on that and let you know how much this is going to continue to affect your morning commute. We're working to get more information about the person who was hit as a result of what happened this morning. But here, that's the backup we're talking about, an I-40 and Rock Quarry Road. It's stretching all the way back to Jones Sausage Road. As you can see, those are the westbound lanes coming in from Johnson and Garner this morning. I'll tell you, if you're stuck in this traffic, you probably want to get off on Jones Sausage Road. If you've gone past the Jones Sausage Road exit, I would take the northern loop of the Beltline as a result of what's happening there on that southern loop. It'll add some time to your commute, but it'll keep you moving. In terms of the coming in from Johnston County, you're looking at a 10-minute delay, just about a 5-minute delay on Finch and Wake Forest, and a 4-minute delay on I-87. In the Bull City, very little to no delays being reported. I'm going to check out and see what's happening right there on those I-40 eastbound lanes and let you know if that's going to continue to hamper you this morning. You're getting ready to head out the door. Always tune us in on the radio, 101.5 HD3.
New this morning, Israel is ordering a full evacuation of Gaza's southernmost city, Rafah, and this means Israel will likely launch another ground operation in that area soon. Israel ended its ceasefire with Hamas earlier this month. It also cut off all food, fuel, medicine, and humanitarian aid to the territory. The evacuation order comes during Eid al-Fitr. That's the Muslim holiday marking the end of the fasting month of Ramadan.
Iran says it will not meet with the Trump administration for direct nuclear talks. Iran's president says a formal rejection letter was delivered to a U.S. contact in Yemen. He says the U.S. has breached promises and must prove it can build trust. He adds indirect talks can continue. The Trump administration is levying new sanctions on Iran as part of its maximum pressure campaign.
New aftershocks in Southeast Asia are causing people to try to get to safety. More than 1,700 people have been confirmed killed after Friday's 7.7 magnitude earthquake. And many families in Thailand and Myanmar are fearing the worst for loved ones who still have not been found beneath the rubble yet. And rescuers are still trying to find people who are alive. Many survivors are left without shelter, food, even water. Field hospitals are being set up to treat the thousands of people who are wounded.
Parts of Vermont are encased in ice this morning after freezing rain hit the area. Look at this video here. People are dealing with downed trees and power outages. At the height of the storm, more than 14,000 customers were without power. Power crews are working throughout the night to restore power and clean up damage. Forecasts suggest warmer conditions will surge into the region today, with temperatures expected to reach into the 50s and 60s.
Investigators say a pilot was killed because their small plane bound for RDU crashed in New Jersey. This happened around 10:30 yesterday morning. The plane departed from a small airport in Princeton and then crashed into the woods about 5 miles away. The pilot was the only person aboard when that happened, and investigators have not released that person's name.
The vice chair of U.S. Bank is believed to have been on the small plane that crashed in Minnesota. A bank spokesperson says the plane was registered to Terry Dolan, who was also the company chief administrative officer. The plane crashed Saturday in the city of Brooklyn Park, about 20 minutes from Minneapolis. It crashed into a home and caused a fire. Investigators say there were no survivors on the aircraft, but it's still not clear how many people were on board.
A German company says a test rocket launch met its goals even though it crashed into the sea. The rocket crashed about 40 seconds after lifting off from a Norwegian spaceport. It's the first time a rocket capable of reaching orbit has launched from continental Europe other than Russia. The German company says the brief flight allowed it to gather a substantial amount of data that it will apply to future missions.
Covering Wake County, one of Raleigh's most legendary restaurants is officially closed. 42nd Street Oyster Bar served customers for the very last time last night. Every single table was full. We're told this is how it's been ever since the restaurant announced it was closing. 42nd Oyster Street Bar was in service in Raleigh since 1931 and at this particular location since 1987. Many people have connections to the restaurant, including one couple we spoke with who got engaged there.
I called, I got off work and I called, I said, meet me at the 42nd Street. And she's like, okay. And so I was here waiting on her. She walked in and I told the whole restaurant, I got an announcement to make. And everybody just stopped and looked around. And I said, will you marry me?
Oh, they will always cherish that memory. Rodney and his wife Judith have been married 6 years now. Staff at the restaurant say the owners told them they were not going to sign a new lease at their Jones Street location and have no plans to move. Coming up, a $1 million pledge. Elon Musk giving out money to Wisconsin voters, what he's trying to do ahead of a Supreme Court election in the state.
Plus, crossing state lines. A wildfire started in South Carolina has crossed into our state. We're going to bring you an update on the containment efforts underway this very moment.
Stay safe with the latest WRAL Weather Alert Day info. Get up to the minute weather and traffic conditions when you get in your car. In Raleigh on 99.3 FM, in Durham 96.5 FM, and everywhere on 101.5 HD3.
Good morning. Happy Monday. Time now is 8:26. We do have a WRAL Weather Alert Day to talk about. But first, we have to get over to WRAL's Ken Smith. He is tracking some major backups on 40.
Yeah, Michelle, this has been a real trouble spot all morning long, the southern loop of the Beltline. We're talking about a crash involving a pedestrian. It's a situation that's had traffic backed up all the way back to the I-40, I-440 split. Here's a live look at that scene with the help of photographer Mark Alexic. You can see exactly what we're talking about. At least 2 lanes are now getting through, but this involves a pedestrian. It happened around a little after 6 o'clock this morning. You can see first responders still there on the scene. We will continue to monitor this and have an update for you at the bottom of the hour over on Fox 50.
And today is a WRAL Weather Alert Day. Powerful line of thunderstorms moving to our west, likely to arrive here around 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon. A quick sprinkle popped up from Raleigh over towards Smithfield and Clayton. Most of that has dissipated. It was kind of in and out, but just a 20% chance really during the day today. And then we get into the evening commute, and that's going to bounce right up to around 90%. Wind damage would be our biggest threat, but we're also likely to have hail and possibly some isolated tornadoes.
Thanks, Elizabeth. A Wake County man being held without bond on charges of sex crimes involving a child. 24-year-old Isaac Diaz is accused of committing a sexual offense against a child in southern Wake County. His charges include indecent liberties and statutory rape. And Duke is in the Final Four of the NCAA tournament, but traveling to see them isn't cheap. Flights to see the game in San Antonio range from $900 to $2,000. Travel advisors say you can save money by flying into nearby cities and driving to San Antonio or staying in hotels further from the city. Next on Fox 50, a containment update on wildfires in the Carolinas.
Now, breaking news from WRAL. Coverage you can count on.
And that breaking news takes us to the southern loop of the Beltline, a crash involving a pedestrian. This has been going on now for a couple of hours. At least 2 lanes are now getting through. I'll let you know how to get around this backup.
And today is a WRAL Weather Alert Day. Powerful front back to our west, moving in our direction. I'll show you what time it gets here and what we'll see.
1 person stabbed in Garner. Police say they have someone in custody. This morning, we'll break down what we know from that scene that unfolded hours ago.
And a vacation score. If you're trying to follow Duke to the Final Four, you'll need to book your accommodations fast. What you need to know ahead of a basketball-filled trip to San Antonio. We'll give you some cheaper tips. Hopefully, tips to make your trip cheaper, because it's not cheap. Thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle McConaughey. How many times can I say cheap?
I'm Chris Lovigan. I was just going to say the number 1 tip: have money. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But we do want to get to the WRAL Weather Alert Day. That's obviously one of the big stories today.
Yes.
Arguably the biggest one, Elizabeth, because you can see the radar. It's moving our way.
Oh, and this has a history of producing, a lot of severe weather, a lot of wind damage and hail, and even some isolated tornadoes. So this is a WRAL Weather Alert Day, and you can see some rain in the mountains. We had a couple of sprinkles that popped up around the triangle a little bit earlier. You can see the bulk of that is over. Little sprinkles, say, just north of Selma there in Johnston County, closer to Clayton. And that's going to be the end of that, most likely, until much later today. Our timeline, as early as 4 o'clock, as late as 10 p.m. Damaging winds and large hail, probably going to be our biggest threats. Isolated tornadoes have popped up with this as well, but we haven't seen as much tornado damage as we have wind and hail. A little bit of sunshine could peek through close to lunchtime. If it does, it'll just help to increase the chance of thunderstorms. Some of those cells between 4 and 5 o'clock developing, but the strong line of wind damage is likely between 6 and 6:30 up through western counties up to the triangle, and then in our eastern counties between, say, 7 and 8, and then it moves right on out of here. We're going to go over that start time in a little more detail coming up. Gray skies, a little bit wet here in downtown Raleigh. It is really warm out there, 68 degrees, and humid too. Our dew point is in the 60s. Our temperatures are in the mid to upper 60s, so it feels really moist and muggy out there. A little breezy too. We'll see high temperatures climbing up to around 80 degrees. We'll talk about how much rain we could see total coming up. Ken?
8:32, Elizabeth, we're staying on top of that breaking news on the southern loop of the Beltline as a result of this crash right here near Hammond Road. You can see the backup stretching all the way back to I-40, 440 split. Let's get right to WRAL's Eric Miller. He's been on the scene for an hour or so now. Eric, set the scene for us and let us know what happened.
Again, investigators remain very busy out here on this side of I-40, and thankfully in the last couple of minutes we've seen that rain taper off, helping them do their jobs here. You take a look across the road here, we're standing on that eastbound side in between Hammond and Rock Quarry roads. You see police, DOT crews, investigators all over there on the westbound side. Traffic is down to 2 lanes there. That's what's really causing our major backups. And within the last 30 minutes, we've seen investigators focusing their efforts on a black Honda SUV that's parked over on the shoulder. There are flashers going off. When we first arrived, the trunk was open. We've seen investigators going in and out of that car, looking at the front bumper, looking at the wheel well. We're still working to learn exactly how that vehicle is tied to this crash here. We know the crash happened right around 6 this morning. That pedestrian hit here on I-40 westbound, rushed to the hospital, serious injuries. We're still working to learn more about their condition this morning and about whether or not anybody could be facing any charges in this crash. Still, this is a major headache for drivers in the Raleigh area. Ken, I know you've been tracking these backups in the best way for people to get around.
Absolutely, Eric, and it's good to see that rain tapered off just a little bit, giving first responders an opportunity to respond well to that crash. This is the backup that Eric talked about, courtesy of I-40 and Rock Quarry Road. You can see the backup stretching all the way back to the I-40, I-440 split, and this is what I'm talking about. Jones Sausage Road, it's all the way back to that area as well. Those are the westbound lanes, the bumper-to-bumper traffic coming in from Garner, Johnston County. And if you are, I would really recommend using the northern loop of the Beltline. Yeah, it's a little congested as well, but it's not like the congestion you're seeing on the southern loop of the Beltline, so keep that in mind if you're about to head out. Also, in terms of the major routes coming into the capital city, it's actually getting better coming in from Johnson and Garner County. Garner, you're looking at a 5-minute delay. Also, we were looking at a slowdown coming in from Chapel Hill, but just up to 3 minutes coming in from Apex as well. In the Bull City, very little to no delays to report this morning. Just that 12-minute delay coming in from Chapel Hill. We're noticing right now between I-885 and Highway 54, probably just a morning congestion, but I'll keep an eye on that and let you know exactly how that's going to continue to affect you this morning. 101.5 HD3, that's the station to listen to. We'll keep you updated all morning long.
Thanks, Ken. New this morning, one person was taken to the hospital after a stabbing in Garner. It happened around 4:15 this morning on Wickerleaf Way. Police say this is a domestic-related incident. Someone is in custody in connection to that stabbing, but police have yet to share any information about that person or the condition of the person who was hurt.
Parts of Kansas were heavily damaged during a round of severe weather, and this is from the same system that we are expecting to blow into our area today. Downed power lines, fallen trees, damaged homes, all of that left in Kansas over the weekend. High winds damaged property and even blew the roof from a church. In Baxter Springs, one person's mobile home was blown nearly 2 feet from its foundation.
This afternoon, a woman charged with murdering her Green Beret husband after his body was found in a Fayetteville pond is due in court. Investigators say Shayna Cloud killed 50-year-old Clinton Bonnell. A body found February 25th in a pond on Gainey Road was identified Friday as Bonnell's remains. Deputies arrested Cloud the same day. Bonnell was reported missing in late January after he failed to show up for class at Methodist University, where he was studying to be a physician assistant. When asked on January 28th, Cloud told deputies that she had not seen Bonnell since the day before. She is in jail without bond. And we will stay on top of the developments that come out of today's court hearing. Look for updates on WRAL News from 4 to 7:30 this evening.
Today, the Wake County Board of Commissioners will discuss its budget for the coming fiscal year. The projected budget is more than $2 billion, and today's work session will be at 2 o'clock this afternoon. The county will hold information sessions about the budget process Wednesday at Oberlin Regional Library. The one after that is next Monday at Southgate Community Library, and then after that one, next Tuesday at Southeast Regional Library.
Well, fans who want to follow Duke to San Antonio for the Final Four can get their tickets now, but it will cost you. If you were to fly out of RDU on Friday and come back on Sunday, it's going to cost between $900 and $2,000. Travel experts say making a trip like this happen requires flexibility and creativity. You'll need to look at surrounding communities for hotels. They'll have more availability and better pricing. And think about flying into Austin or Houston and driving to San Antonio.
If you're able to, spend a little bit of time on the front end and a little bit of time on the back end, maybe seeing the area, doing some other things when you're there other than just the game. If you have that flexibility, then you'll be able to find tickets.
You'll also need to look out for those scam artists, especially if you're looking for an Airbnb, Vrbo, or other home rental. Those types of scams are likely to become much more common as demand spikes around the Final Four. And Duke will play the Houston Cougars on Saturday in the semifinals. Tip-off for the game is set for 8:49 p.m.
And Michelle, as the Duke men prepare for the Final Four, the season is over for the women's team. The Blue Devils lost in the Elite Eight to defending champions South Carolina. This was Duke's first Elite Eight appearance since 2013, and their eyes are already on the future of the team. The players we talked with say that their closeness will help them support each other as they look to the next season.
Elon Musk is trying to rally conservative voters in Wisconsin's state Supreme Court race. He handed $1 million checks to two people at a town hall in Green Bay. He's also paying potential voters $100 each for signing a pledge to not support activist judges. Wisconsin Supreme Court unanimously declined to take up an appeal from the state's attorney general to block Musk for giving out the checks. It did not give a reason for its decision. Musk says he is giving out the checks to draw attention to the race.
It causes the legacy media to kind of lose their minds, and then they'll run it on every news channel. And I'm like, I couldn't pay them it would cost 10 times more.
Tomorrow's election is expected to determine ideological control of the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, which is a key battleground state. In South Carolina, the Table Rock Complex wildfire has burned more than 13,000 acres. It's the largest ever recorded wildfire in upstate South Carolina, surpassing a 2016 fire that consumed more than 10,000 acres. Some of the flames have crossed state lines, impacting Transylvania County.
As we have had the largest water chemical drops in state history for this fire. So that is the magnitude, March is a big month for fires, but April notoriously has been the biggest. So we're not even to, the month that we normally see a lot of activity.
And much needed rain in the forecast will hopefully help with those containment efforts.
And Michelle, Moore County firefighters are back home after a week in Polk County. They worked alongside Henderson and Polk County crews to battle wildfires in western North Carolina. The group of 10 firefighters returned yesterday afternoon, and they came from several local fire departments, including from Carthage, Cypress Point, and Southern Pines. Your time is 8:40 this morning. Deadly drone attack. 2 were killed in strikes that hit Ukraine. What we're learning about that attack this morning.
And Snow White dethroned. Big shifts in weekend movie earnings. The action film taking the top spot this morning.
And just a reminder, it is a WRAL Weather Alert day as we are giving you a live look at Wilson. You can see the whirly gigs are whirling. Storms will be rolling in this evening, and after the break, we're going to check in with meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner about that storm system that she is tracking minute by minute. Getting a live look at Durham this morning. You can see the cloud coverage there. I mean, they're darker clouds, but we've only seen kind of some spotty showers there this morning. It's really later in the day that Elizabeth has been tracking here in the WRAL Severe Weather Center. Elizabeth, we've been talking all morning, different states that have already seen this. You can see the radar. It's coming our direction.
It really is. And yeah, a lot of severe weather with this. I'm going to show you what some of the reports are coming up. It is a WRAL weather alert day. We've seen a lot of wind damage and hail with this system back to our west. Also, a few isolated tornadoes. You can see some rain in the mountains of North Carolina. We had a disturbance actually sitting offshore, and so we saw some rain out ahead of that this morning, just a couple of sprinkles, not necessarily related to the front that's coming through later on today. We'll zoom in and you can see at this point, all those sprinkles are really over with. We had a little light rain in downtown Raleigh, so it's still damp in a few places, but really not seeing any rain left over at this point. So here's a look at Futurecast. We may see a few holes in the clouds closer to lunchtime, and then the line of thunderstorms develops and starts to move in between 4 and 5 o'clock in our western counties. The strong line of thunderstorms between, say, 6 and 6:30 here through the middle of the viewing area, and then between 7 and 8 in our eastern counties. And it's along that line that we'll have the best chance of any severe storm. So let's talk specifically what time. So in the yellow, Roxborough, Durham, Siler City through Southern Pines, between 4 and 5 o'clock is when the rain will begin to roll in. And then between 5 and 6 from South Hill to Lewisburg to Lillington to Fayetteville, and then between 6 and 7 from Rocky Mount to Wilson to Goldsboro to Clinton. So those are the timelines that we'll see for the beginning of this. And then it may last, 30 minutes to an hour at any given spot. Wind damage likely to be the biggest threat, but interestingly enough, there's been a good bit of hail out there and a little less tornado damage. But we may see more tornado damage today as it gets closer to us. Here's a live look at North Hills. The camera there just a little bit damp earlier, and the streets are a bit damp as well, but pretty much that rain is over with at this point. It is warm and muggy out there, 68 degrees. Our dew point is 62, and that is pretty high. I mean, it gets into the 70s in the summer, but for this time of year, that's high. You can feel it when you step outside. Our temperatures are currently in the mid to upper 60s, and we'll climb to nearly 80 degrees before the line of thunderstorms arrives. So it's really going to feel summer-like for us today. Right now, our winds are 5 to 10 miles per hour, but we'll likely get a little gustier as those storms get closer to us. Tomorrow, we'll see a nice drop in the humidity just in time for the Durham Bulls home opener. But look at this. We climb back up to steamy on Thursday and Friday. More about that in just a second. But the Bulls game home opener tomorrow looks great. Lots of sunshine, lower humidity, 67 at game time. And then check out this. Thursday and Friday are the days that we start to see the humidity climbing. We could hit 90 degrees for the first time on Friday. Ken?
Elizabeth, we're staying on top of that breaking news. We've got a lot of incidents dotting our traffic map, but the main really concern is this crash right here on the southern loop of the Beltline. We're talking right there at Hammond Road. You can see the huge backups it's causing all the way back to the I-40 split. Let's take this live picture, courtesy of photographer Mark Alexic. You can see at least 2 lanes are getting through. This happened around 6 o'clock this morning. It involved a pedestrian, and there's this black SUV right here that Raleigh police officers have been focusing on. We're trying to figure out the connection between that black SUV and the person who was hit. We're also trying to figure out exactly who that person is and their condition at this hour. But really and truly, this is the backup it's causing. This is courtesy of I-40 and Rock Quarry Road. It stretches all the way back to the I-40, I-440 split. And this is what I'm talking about. All the way back to Jones Sausage Road, you can see bumper-to-bumper traffic this morning. If you're coming in from Garner, Johnston County, I would highly recommend taking the northern loop of the Beltline to get to your destination this morning to avoid what's happening on the southern loop. Yeah, it's going to add a little bit to your time, but it's going to get you around that slowdown. Right now, that's what we're seeing, that 8 minutes coming in from Johnston County, but not too bad, actually. That was in double digits a little while ago. This is about a 5-minute delay coming in. On Capitol Boulevard from Wake Forest. Over in Durham, this is a trouble spot for us this morning. We're working to figure out exactly what's causing that slowdown between I-885 and Highway 54 there in Durham on I-40 eastbound. You're looking at a 14-minute delay, but elsewhere in the Bulk City, all the other major routes are delay-free. You're getting ready to head out the door. Always tune us in, 101.5 HD3.
And Jeff, over to the WRAL Live Center. Got some blockbuster news coming out of Europe, France in particular. Far-right French leader Marine Le Pen has been barred by a court in France from seeking public office for the next 5 years. This is her on her way into court this morning. This is her facing a judge. Now, she's been banned from public office for 5 years for embezzlement, convicted today. This throws French politics into a tailspin. She's the leading contender to succeed President Emmanuel Macron at the end of his second and final term, which is scheduled to last into 2027. But the court ruled that Le Pen had used 4 party employees as well as other members of parliament and paid them as personal assistants. So she is convicted of misusing European funds for her own political party, to the tune of a total of more than $4 million over more than 10 years' time this took place. Now, she can appeal this, but from experts coming out of that courtroom saying that it is likely to change any part of that ban for 5 years from public office.
Ooh, a messy situation there. Thanks, Jeff. Well, 2 people were killed in Ukraine after a Russian drone attack. The drones hit the city of Kharkiv yesterday, leaving 30 others wounded. This comes as pressure for ceasefire talks between the 2 nations continue.
Now, if you need a new driver's license, a Real ID, or any other DMV service, really, prepare to wait. A 5-year side investigation found virtually no available appointments for those services over the next 2 months. Keely Arthur uncovers why wait times are getting even worse and what the state's doing to fix it.
Viewer complaints about the DMV are at an all-time high. Here are 3 factors driving up these long lines and wait times. The Real ID deadline. The deadline to get a Real ID is May 7th, and only about 50% of North Carolinians have theirs. In-person renewals. Many drivers who renewed their licenses online for the first time 8 years ago are now required to renew in person this year. And staffing shortages. Some DMV locations like East Raleigh have 15 workstations, but only 8 employees.
The employee here, they were very, very nice. Said, what you need to do is go wherever you're going to go get your license, whether it's here or somewhere else, go get in line at 7:30 tomorrow morning. You'll then put your name on a list. You'll then wait till noon and then put your name on another list, and then you might be seen by 5 o'clock, and that ranks as being absurd.
Earlier this month, Governor Josh Stein proposed adding nearly $20 million in the DMV's budget, in part to add staff. We asked all 170 state lawmakers if they plan on supporting that budget increase. We're going to hear what they have to say coming up on WRAL News tonight at 6 p.m. We're also going to hear from State Auditor Dave Bullock. He's going to give us an update into his audit of the DMV, what he says is crucial to cut down on these long lines. Keely Arthur, 5 on your side.
Some new films challenged Snow White this weekend at the box office. David Daniel shares how movie sales stacked up this week.
Felt like it was showing me something.
Death of a Unicorn opened in 5th place, galloping off with $5.8 million. The horror flick The Woman in the Yard scared up $9.5 million for a 4th place debut. The Chosen Last Supper, a theatrical release of the first 2 episodes of Season 5 of the crowd-funded series, collected $11.5 million, opening 3rd.
Whistle while you work.
Snow White lost her crown. The Disney movie fell to 2nd in its second weekend out, grossing $14.2 million, a 66% drop from its debut.
Let's play. Get 'em.
A Working Man is the new #1 movie. The Jason Statham action thriller opened in the top spot with $15.2 million, playing in nearly 1,000 fewer theaters than Snow White. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
The Carolina Hurricanes are going head-to-head against the Eastern Conference leading Washington Capitals this week. Alex Ovechkin scored another goal yesterday, which means he only has 5 goals before he breaks Wayne Gretzky's NHL record. Puck Drop is Wednesday at 7 p.m., and that is over on WRAL. Exciting time to show.
Oh, yeah, it is. Before we go to break, here are your winning lottery numbers. We'll get another check on weather and traffic coming up next.